Okay, so I'm gonna take you through some of my old Splatoon comics from 2022. Yeah, 2022 through 2024. So these comics were some pretty popular comics on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, all of my socials, which I'm pretty proud about. Up until I started making these comics, I don't think I had ever really made anything that had gone as viral or had been as popular as these comics. So I'm pretty excited to show them off here on YouTube. People really liked them, which I'm really happy about, and I really liked making them. So I made them for quite a while. So basically what this is going to be is just like a sort of behind the scenes look, taking you through like my thought processes that went on when I was first making them. You know, like just giving commentary on some of my favorite things about them, and then also maybe some things that I kind of maybe even have some slight regrets about. You know, highlight some of my mistakes, certain things that I could learn from in the future, things that I already have learned from for sure. Like, I really appreciate these comics, like, overall still, but it's just that typical artist thing where, like, you look back on work that's not even from that long ago, and you can just see, like all the flaws in it, you know? You know, passing time gives you fresh eyes to look at your artwork with, so you look back and you go, did I draw like this? This is something that I used to do? It's always a funny feeling. So to start things off, the first comic we have here is Cap of the Captain. Every comic has a name that I've given it. Now, this wasn't my first Splatoon comic, but I decided to put this one up first because I think this might be my favorite one. Like out of all of them. This was the second Splatoon comic that I made. That's right, I peaked immediately. Every other one afterwards, complete misery to work through. No, I'm joking. The first Splatoon comic that I made is the one I'll show after this, so I reversed the order. So the first one is second and the second one is first. So plot-wise, this story is about Agent 3 in the middle of her final test to become the leader of the new Squid Beak Splatoon. What I wanted was, especially after my first comic, which was like a cute kind of slice of life romance comic, I wanted to take the opportunity to just like immediately go into shonen action nonsense, if you will. I always find it to be pretty cool when you take certain properties that aren't explicitly this, as in like a shonen battle manga or like a serious action series, but definitely like lends itself pretty well to it when you put it under that lens. Splatoon is definitely one of those series. So with that being said, I could see the potential to do this sort of like this age-old master and student trope that goes on in so many shonen manga. Obviously Captain Cuttlefish as the master, Agent 3 as the student. And really, I thought it would be really cool, if not at least hilarious, to paint Captain Cuttlefish in sort of like this similar light to a character like let's say like Jiraiya or like Master Roshi, you know? Somebody like Genkai, Silver Rayleigh, all of the cool old masters that you know from various shonen anime and manga. Cause like really he's quite primed for it, you know? I would love, maybe not a whole game per se, but I would love to get some more backstory between him and DJ Octavio back when they were like fighting the wars and all that. There are all these shots of the two of them like from way back when, them being like younger and like in their prime and whatnot, and they all look so cool. All of those characters that they feature in those sunken scrolls, they look so sick. I don't know, Team Past won the Final Fest, so maybe we'll see that sooner rather than later. Anyways though, so her goal is like simply to steal Captain Cuttlefish's hat. I always love like simple tests like that. It felt very appropriate for what I was trying to do, and also I needed something like very digestible and like concise because I knew that this was going to be a mini comic, something very short. Like we're coming close to the end of it here actually. I think this is the second to last page, but I jam-packed a lot into this comic. Still to this day, I'm quite proud of what I was able to accomplish with this one. Like I was saying earlier about, you know, having fresh eyes for your old work and kind of going like, "Ugh." It's not really something I feel towards this comic. This one holds up pretty well. Some really good shots and angles. I really especially like the one that we just flipped beyond, the one of her in the air detonating the splat bombs. So I actually got a comment about that. Someone was like, I don't think splat bombs detonate until they hit a surface, like the ground or something. This was so long ago, I don't remember if I like thought of that, but either way, you'll see that like with these comics, this one being like the epitome of it. I bend the rules of the world of Splatoon from time to time, never in ways that are like too crazy, too drastic. But like as you can see here, a lot of what'll be on my mind will be like rule of cool. And if I can get something really interesting or really cool in exchange for something that I feel like no one will be that mad at, like lore-wise, then I'll do it, like as you can see there. But yeah, Cap of the Captain, very, very proud of that one. Moving on though, here we have Agent 3's Tentacles. Yes, that is the name of the comic. Out of context, I know that sounds probably like really weird to anybody who's not familiar with Splatoon, but if you made it this far without being familiar with Splatoon, congratulations. I'm very surprised. So this comic is about Agent 8 and Agent 3. This happens squarely like right directly after Octo Expansion. Like they're literally like, this is kind of headcanon-y of course, but they're literally in the chopper going back to, let's say like Inkopolis. I don't know where, probably Inkopolis, right? Yeah. They're going back to Inkopolis. And I thought it would be pretty funny, thought it would be pretty cute if Agent 8, someone who is not familiar with Inkling society or Inklings in general, got a little curious about Agent 3's hair over there. Now, it's weird. In the Splatoon universe, they call hair hair. They don't call their hair tentacles, even though they have tentacles for hair. There's not like a special name for like tentacle hair in the Splatoon universe, surprisingly. But I think it's this way for brevity's sake, because like it would be it'd probably, especially considering that it's a Japanese franchise that has to be translated into multiple different languages, just for simplicity's sake, they just call Inkling and Octoling hair, Inkfish hair, they just call it hair. Even so, I decided to have them refer to their hair in this story as tentacles, of course, because I just thought it would be funnier. And like otherwise, it just kind of like takes away the goofiness of it, the intrigue of it. But it's something I had definitely thought about. One of my favorite aspects of this comic was, as you can see here, the very bottom panel. I really liked drawing these tentacles. The world of Splatoon has a lot of like uncannily satisfying things to render out as an artist. It's very strange. I actually haven't been back to drawing any kind of Splatoon content for a while, but it's something that always has like a weird magnetic pull to me in one way or another. So I will be back one day because I just cannot help myself. But Agent 3's tentacles here were like a really weird example of that. Getting the opportunity to draw like extreme close-ups of them, you know, like with the scars and all. I don't know, something about it. But here we've got this little transition going on. You can see the comparison from panel to panel. There have been a couple of people who have done comic dubs of this comic, something that I super appreciate and I'm still like really mind blown by. In those comic dubs, some of them have like a really cool transition between Agent 8 like preparing to touch the tentacle and then like actually like squishing it. And I've always I really like that, so I tried to recreate that there. And so for this final page, a lot of people liked this top panel here quite a bit. I like it a lot too, but fun fact, I actually messed up on this pretty badly. Her eyelashes are not supposed to be that thick. They don't actually reflect exactly what I wanted at the time from what I remember. Now it's funny because like, you know, Inklings and Octolings, they have those masks. Octolings kind of have just like this really cool looking dark emo looking eyeliner, and it's one of my my favorite elements of their character design. So I was like, you know, really going ham with it, but I think I went too far. But in the end, especially looking back, I'm not mad at it. I don't dislike it. It was just supposed to look different. But yeah, on to the next comic. Here we have some deep cut stuff now. This was the Mako Mart Serial Surprise comic. So it's interesting. This actually wasn't my first deep cut comic, but for some reason for this showcase, I decided to put this one before that one. Kind of like with Cap of the Captain before, but this time I don't have a good reason for it. I think I just did it. It is pretty short though. So right off the bat, if you look closely, like if you look in Shiver's shopping cart there's a cute little cameo there. This is something that I would do from time to time during these comics. I would just kind of like throw random little references in there, here or there. In her cart, there's a Maxim tomato from Kirby. Not the hardest thing in the world to spot, but you know, I thought I'd still point it out. Usually they're like references from other video games. I don't go too crazy outside the box. Like there's not gonna be like a like a Star Wars reference randomly here or there. I'm not into Star Wars, by the way, just to say. But like the big hook of this comic is that Shiver is like going through Mako Mart and trying to find cereal. And the funnest thing about this comic was getting to stretch my imagination in terms of thinking about like what the various idols or like the different bands, celebrities in the Splatoon universe, what kind of cereal brand deals would they like get. And so the first cereal that she looks at, the one on the other page from before, that was an Off the Hook branded one. Then next it's Seaside, and you can't really see it from the image of the third one, but it's supposed to be Front Row. But yeah, this comic is just basically like, it's just all expressions and like talking heads. Well, only her head at least. I did this comic very quickly. It's only 3 pages. I did it as a test just to see how fast I could really like make a comic from start to finish, as in like sketch to line art to polish. I think I did it in like a day, maybe like 2 or 3 days. And so for Shiver's outfit in this comic, up next we have a little bit of color. It's pretty rare for this showcase. I think I drew this first, actually. I made this illustration before I made the comic, and like when I needed to throw her in something, I kind of just like defaulted to this because it was like the nearest thing, and it looked like it looked pretty casual. At first I think I wanted to put her in like pajamas when she was at the store or something, because if you're from the States, you know, like people love to go to Walmart or go to freaking 7-Eleven or somewhere like that, you know, at like 2 a.m. in their pajamas. But I decided to just go with this because I really appreciate showing off the Splatoon characters in Splatoon like accurate like outfits. Like this hoodie is I forget what it's called, but it's like a parka that you can get in game. Splatoon is so fashion centric, and there's so many interesting cool outfits in Splatoon, so I try and throw characters in stuff that you can actually like get in game. I just like it a lot, and it just makes sense. Although there are some things that I throw characters in that you can't get in game. We'll get into that in a bit, but up next we have this comic. This is actually, I think, my first deep cut comic. This is the Golden Egg Heist comic. This one's pretty up there in terms of my favorites. So let's talk about Fry real quick. Out of every Splatoon character, I think Fry is my favorite to draw. One of the biggest reasons being her pants. Now, I in general really like Fry. I see you guys out here, I see you Fry stands. I know y'all think that nobody likes Fry, that's cap. I really appreciate Fry. I love her design. There's only one element of her design that I gotta call out that I really can't stand, and it's the fact that her eyes aren't blue. It's just dissatisfying. I want to make more videos in the future talking about like design principles that I appreciate, or design principles that irk me, but I love everything about her design except for the fact that her eyes are not blue. Reasons for that I'll go into some other time, but like if you know, you know. If you get it, you get it. So considering that this is all analog, as in not drawn digitally, characters with darker skin like Fry are shaded with a marker. The shots where they open up these shipping containers and these shots of them surrounded by all these power eggs, these are some of my favorite panels throughout like any of these Splatoon comics. So for this next page, let me talk about Shiver and Fry's masks here. They were kind of tricky to figure out because like I knew I wanted to draw them, but I also knew that there were elements of them that I just wasn't going to be a fan of actually having to render out, namely like the teeth. And just in general, there's like a lot of unevenness to these masks, for as cool as they look, that are like, they're just not conducive for the kind of stuff that I prefer to draw, you know? So in order to shave down their awkwardness, I simplified them in some ways that I'm really proud of. And as for this bottom panel of Shiver here, big fan of this one. I really like how this one came out. Big gremlin energy all over it. Wanted to make sure it was a panel that you like could practically hear, you know? You could just see her going Big fan of this panel too. You'd think that the power eggs would be like really grating to draw, but they're not, because they're just spheres. And actually, I had a lot of fun with these. I actually love shading stuff like this because the hatching it's pretty simple and it only goes like one way. And when it comes to stuff like that, I kind of just like zone out and go into Zen mode, and it's pretty straightforward. But here we have another Goofy cameo. People called this Mario. It was it was actually supposed to be Luigi. I even tried to like emphasize his lankier proportions, but Luigi still can't get the recognition that he deserves. But whatever, it doesn't matter. As you can see in this last page, they kill him, so I'm joking. Some people were suggesting that whatever headcanon you may have, that's up to you, but you know, I definitely wanted to show off a very menacing side to Deep Cut here, as they are bandits. They're Robin Hood bandits, but bandits nonetheless. Lawbreakers for sure. Funny enough, with that being said, we have the exact opposite of this in this next comic here. This one is another one of my favorites. This is Hagglefish Halftime. From them being menacing to them being cute. This is a pretty solid example of what I was talking about earlier with like bending the rules of the world of Splatoon a bit. So I really like these outfits. This is what I was talking about earlier with putting characters in things that are obviously not in Splatoon, but are very Splatoon inspired or Splatoon themed still. But for as much as I like the patterns that I put on these kimonos, I made a strange mistake on Shiver's kimono specifically. Shiver's collar is backwards, and it's just something I didn't know about, like culturally, about kimonos. It's something I'll talk about a little bit more because I highlight these outfits more specifically in a later section. But off the jump, it's something I wanted to just like bring up because it's like that throughout. I'll explain the mistake when we get there. So in Splatoon 3, during the halftime deep cut, they take a little intermission and talk about who's winning so that they can determine who's gonna get like what positions for the tricolor battles, right? I've always been confused, I know it's a video game, but I've always been confused by how like deep cut can be performing yet also giving intermission announcements. So in my mind, it's like how actual broadcasting works. Nothing is really recorded to the absolute T of when it's going down and streamed to people. There's always like a delay because like if someone says like a crazy something or other, then like they gotta edit it out or they gotta cut. So I was thinking of this idea where like deep cut, they do a lot of things like pre-scripted or in advance. Maybe it's not like a 7-second delay, but it'll be like maybe like 30 minutes to an hour or so. I like the idea that they maybe every now and then have some certain Splatfests where they can have a bit of a break and they can actually like be a part of the festival as like, you know, like attendance. So really, it's just a comic about them actually being able to have fun during the Splatfest that they host. This panel of Fry here, I think features the most references that I have ever put to other franchises in a comic. I made sure to make the majority of everything that's in this pile like Splatoon stuff so that it wasn't like super obvious. But if you look closely, you can see like a Korok, some other things, Pokeballs, Mario mushrooms. It's funny because I didn't put most of these references for the sake of the references. I did it because I didn't want for the stack to get too repetitive like Splatoon wise. There were only so many Splatoon plushies that I could like use to fill out the pile completely, so. And speaking of references, so plot-wise, Fry is having a good time, but Shiver is extremely tired. So Shiver wanders off, and out the corner of her eye, she notices this little inkling boy. This dude is absolutely atrocious at this carnival game that he's trying. So she steps in and tries to give him a hand. Now, this little boy is Ness, just like flat out design-wise. A lot of these NPCs that I'll put in these comics will be like Nintendo characters like with Mario/Luigi earlier. But again, like I just said with the plushie pile, many of these cameos I wouldn't do just because they were cool, even though I do think they're cool and I do appreciate that I did them. I actually did them because they were like quick and easy because I didn't want to have to come up with like a random NPC design. And so here we have one of my favorite panels that I've ever drawn, like period. I think I really like it a lot, like art wise, idea wise. From time to time you'll see me use this sort of squiggly scratchy effect in the background. It's very prominently used in this panel, and it's actually something that was inspired from Dragon Ball, from Toriyama's art style. As an artist that does everything analog, I don't do anything digitally except for the text. So screen tones wise and special effect wise, I take inspiration from older classical manga artists who only use black and white, since that's what I do as well. So this is the kimono section that I was talking about earlier. So about Shiver's collar thing. So apparently kimonos are supposed to fold from left to right, no matter the circumstances when it comes to those who are alive, but when it comes to the dead, the kimonos are supposed to fold from right to left. I had absolutely like no idea about this. So for me, it was a stylistic choice. It was intentional, but completely stylistic, because when it comes to dual designs like Shiver and Fry, I made these two as a pair. And for my dual designs, I like to make basically everything about them opposite. This is also why one is in white and one is in black. So to me, it was a completely superfluous little thing that I just happened to throw on there. I had no idea that like a couple of extra lines would end up being like considered to be disrespectful. So I apologize for that. But otherwise, I really do appreciate these designs. They're very pretty and I'm very proud of them. But moving on to this next comic, this comic is Flounder Heights Hot Pursuit. This was another one I made to just see how fast I could put out a comic, like from start to finish. This was 4 pages, but considering the detail, still to this day, even to me, I did this one like shockingly quickly. Yeah, looking back on this one wasn't one of my favorites, but I think it has one of my favorite like intro pages to a comic that I've made. Anytime I get to draw like the jellies, I really appreciate the jellies in Splatoon. I'm probably having a good time because I think they're super cute. They're very fun, they're very easy, and just in general, I'm a fan of drawing the other races of creatures that appear in Splatoon. And that's kind of funny because I draw a lot of deep cut, but I don't draw Big Man, and he like falls obviously into that category. But honestly, that's kind of just a coincidence. I actually really like drawing Big Man. I just like happen to not draw him based on like whatever ideas I come up with. But yeah, this bottom panel, I absolutely love it. It's got a lot of good dynamics to it. The perspective hits just right. Very proud of that. So considering that I don't have much to say about the next page, it's just her escaping from these jelly cups. So I said this earlier, but I'll elaborate on it real quick. I use a gray marker to shade Fry's skin tone with. Characters with a darker skin tone are usually shaded digitally nowadays, but my method works surprisingly well. I just have to be careful not to create streak marks on the page in certain places. Like, it's something that I worried about quite a bit in the beginning, but I realized just how much of a viable option it was once I did it in practice. For characters that show a lot of skin though, I might need to reevaluate this, but for characters like her and Marina, it's pretty solid. So here we have a literal jump scare from Shiver. Seeing this location that they're in brings this thought to mind. I probably should have said it earlier, but one of the biggest reasons why I'm so surprised about how quickly I was able to put this one out, right, is because I generally hate drawing urban settings. I know it's kind of funny because, like, you know, Splatoon is mostly urban, but surprisingly, I never really had to draw too many city locales back when I was doing these comics. For this page especially, being an analog artist who can't like copy and paste, it's a real disadvantage because you see these characters from the exact same angle, and it would have been really nice to just take one shot and zoom in a couple of times instead of like drawing the same background over and over again, but you know, it's what I did. So the trick for repetitive situations like this is for me to do it all at the same time. Every time I put a line here, I put a line there. Every time I put a line there, I put a line here. Like panel for panel, I like mirror my own actions. I don't treat each panel like they're separate entities. I do them all at once together. This is why when it comes to drawing the other eye, it's never been something that's ever really bothered me too much. This is something that beginner artists especially hate. But yeah, if you just draw it all together, you never really have to worry about that. Anyways though, on to the next comic. This one is Hammerhead Bridge Traffic Jam. Ah, see, there he is. Speaking of what I was just saying, so finally we got some big man. I believe my desires for this one started from me wanting to create just like a really obviously uncomfortable, cramped situation. I wanted to do something that was actually like a bit difficult. Some of these I'll make them and I'll be like, okay, I want to make something easy. And some of them, like this one, I'll be like, all right, it's time for something hard. The challenge here was drawing their bodies in these weird, goofy, funny, contorted kind of ways that normally no one would like sit like, you know? Also, yes, that is Wario. So in this story, they're trapped in an Uber on Hammerhead Bridge. Their car ride was only supposed to be like a couple of minutes, but they get hit with this unexpected traffic jam out of nowhere. I don't necessarily feel that I failed my challenge in trying to draw them in these weird, contorted ways, like successfully, but looking back on this one, this is one of those ones that I don't think holds up particularly well. It's honestly kind of flat and boring visually. I mean, it has a lot of dialogue though that's supposed to carry it, and the situation in and of itself is pretty, it holds its own weight, you know? But looking at it in a vacuum without the text and stuff, I can especially see the flaws on this one. I think it came from me not wanting to draw the inside of a car very much, so the backgrounds are kind of like these hazy, like nebulous nothing spaces, you know? Nothing's really like properly rendered except for like the ceiling at times. Not to mention it's very liney, if you get what I mean. Like there's no shading, everything's just a bunch of lines, and those lines aren't particularly like balanced well. Not the worst one in the world, but it's not my favorite, that's for sure. Yeah, so in the end, Big Man gets mad, he gets out the car, lifts it up with everyone else in it, and just like runs to the end of the traffic jam. Onto this comic. This one's really short. This one's only 3 pages. You know, I haven't really mentioned this, so I guess I'll mention it now since it's topical. Most of these comics are 4 pages, with the exception of the first 2 and the last couple. It's something that after a while I really wanted to iron out and like stop with, because a lot of these are very gag-like. They're very like akin to what you'd see in gag manga from like Shonen Jump, and that was really cool for like a little bit to test my skills out and to put out stuff quickly. But after a while I really wanted to do something more again, like how I was in the very beginning, because I felt like for a second there I had kind of been going too far in a direction I didn't really want to go in. So like this one though, this one's really cute. This one is just a cute little comparison between wait, spoilers, I guess if you've gotten this far maybe you don't care, but you know, I'll still like be extremely vague with things, you know, just out of respect, you know, it's not that big a deal. But I'd like for this video to have as minimal editing as possible, so I'm not gonna put up like some type of like timestamp on screen for you to skip to, so I'll just be vague. Agent 8 here and new Agent 3 here are comparing trauma, to put it like loosely. In context, it's pretty funny. I like this one. It's just something quick and easy I thought of. Just some pretty fun, easy panels of new Agent 3 and Agent 8 thinking about the crazy crap that they've had to deal with on their adventures. So this next one is The Battle of Scorch Gorge. Ooh, super epic title. This is actually one of those longer ones. This one was, I think, 8 pages, maybe 7. I think it was 7. So plot-wise, Fry is on a mission, a job, doing some bounty hunting. I think this one was one of the ones that I had done the most like making up crap, like random. These guys are basically OCs. They use all of the chaos gear, but they're called the Skull Blasters. I never really meant to like put too much into it. It's just something I came up with real quick. But in Splatoon, there's obviously no group of people called the Skull Blasters or anything like that. But I fully wanted to make a scenario that was like really edgy, really hardcore. Obviously not like actually edgy or hardcore, but I wanted this to go hard. Wanted to do some action stuff after a long period of not doing anything action oriented, and I for sure wanted it to be at least like a bit longer than the stuff I had been putting out like before this. So Fry shows up to the Skull Blasters hideout and she's looking for their boss. Their boss has a bounty on his head, and so some of these lackeys hop down to interrogate her when she shows up. Again, I really like using that deep cut bandit angle a lot. Like I really wanted to use this opportunity to draw her mask again. I had another bandit story planned where Deep Cut robs Museum di Alfonsino, but that one never came to fruition. I just never got around to it. But so what happens is they try to blast her, but Fry, she's a nimble one. I really took my time with this one. There's a lot of detail. As I look back on it, it's really polished. The shot of her looking at the hideout from afar in the very beginning is a shot I'm still very proud of to this day. I honestly only wish it were a bit bigger because I think it's hard to appreciate with how small and jam-packed everything is within that space. Scorched Gorge as a location is a place that lends itself really well to me doing these really gritty, minute details at every nook and cranny. So, like I was saying earlier about not appreciating urban settings very much, a place like Scorched Gorge is like the antithesis of that. Foresty areas, mountainy areas, anything that has that organic touch to it, I always like way more in terms of rendering, because buildings, things that are man-made, have this knack for having no real like hitches or places to put any kind of like texturing, so they are very flat and boring by like default. Unless those urban environments are extremely like rusty and gritty, but like drawing a lot of cities or drawing a lot of like urban interiors, for me it's just the worst because it's just drawing squares over and over again. This is actually something that in recent times I've been really happy to see that a lot of artists also like corroborate with this kind of thought processing. Okay, so for what I wanted from what you can see here, I got this cool idea to have this guy try to blast her, but she jumps up in the air and she steps on him with only one foot, and then we see her strike this dynamic pose. A pose that is only something Fry would strike. Something that's reminiscent of the dance moves that you see her do during the Splatfest. And then also this being the first time that we see what's underneath her cloak, along with her reveal of her Splatana stamper. Really cool sequence of actions here, and looking back on it, yeah, give it a giant thumbs up, it's pretty cool. I knew from Jump Street that I wanted these two Skull Blasters that she's fighting here to be using Luna Blasters, because Luna Blasters are just way easier to draw than normal blasters or range blasters, even though those two blasters are obviously more in line with their themes. The whole hardcore Mad Max like theme we're going for here. And looking back on it, I wish that I did draw at least like maybe the normal blaster. I think the range blaster might have been a little too big, but I think considering how polished the rest of this is, I probably could have handled it. And so here we have this big portrait panel of Fry declaring that the Skull Blasters hand over their boss. Now, in certain comics, especially shoujo manga, there are times where panels become basically non-existent. The thing that Fry is doing here with her sword is something that I rarely do, and looking back on it, I actually think I did a pretty good job of it. Maybe I should try it again some other time for another comic. And so for this last page coming up, this is a panel that I had wanted to draw for so very long before I even really conceived this comic to be where I would like place it in. I just knew that I was like, okay, we gotta make a comic. I gotta make a comic someday where I have some character fight some other whoever who's utilizing a giant crab tank. After a while, after like chewing on that idea for a bit, it crystallized and it finalized into the comic that you see here. And I even wanted to do a part 2 of this where she actually fights it, but I guess I ran out of steam. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, she actually doesn't fight it. Sorry about that. I'm definitely the saddest one about this though, so. So the Skull Blaster's boss gets called out and he drops down with this massive crab tank. So let's take a look at this crab tank, shall we? Because I put a lot of effort into this. It was a lot of fun, but it was hard fun. The real hard part of all of this wasn't the fact that I was drawing some giant mech. That's not really the issue here. That's the fun part, actually. The hard part was actually sticking to what the crab tank is supposed to look like. Keeping everything on model was kind of a nightmare because there aren't very many good pictures that I could use online, surprisingly. So what I ended up doing was I took a bunch of screenshots from like the actual game of Splatoon 3 myself. For these kinds of things, I really would have preferred to have used like concept art or something, but hey, it is what it is. It turned out pretty great in the end. And with the last page of this comic, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. These are not all of the Splatoon comics that I've made. I've left a couple of them on the table, but this video is getting pretty up there lengthwise. So I think this is a pretty solid finale to leave things on for now. But yeah, odds are I won't make any more new Splatoon comics. I'll probably continue to make Splatoon artwork, but comic-wise, I'm probably pretty done with that. I've just moved on to other projects, you know? But either way, I hope that you enjoyed this little look through. That's pretty much it for me. Everybody have a good day, have a good night, have a good whatever. Stay inspired, stay inspirational.